always a pleasure to be able to find a vehicle which is already such a popular car in our collection, such as a Range Rover Sport of this facelift generation. Of course, here a 2014 car in particular, but in a spec which on occasion actually has been, and on more than a few occasions certainly has the vibe of what you could call a showroom car. In other words, the kind of vehicle which looks like a show car or a concept car, showcasing the kind of colour combinations which a manufacturer could offer for their potential customers to spec a certain car in a particular way. This car just has that sort of visual vibe. It has some very rare choices as well, such as of course being finished in the gorgeous Luxor gold with Santorini roof and the particularly rare colour-coded bodywork as well on the front and rear end in particular. What's even more rare is that combination of ivory and espresso leather and even espresso boot lining as well, which is a gorgeous interior spec to have. Now, being of course a 3-litre SDV6 in HSE dynamic form, which is a whole lot of letters and numbers to put together, so of course we'll dive into what all of that actually means. First things first, the HSE dynamic is of course its trim level, and it is again one of our best sellers. Between this and the autobiography, it essentially offers everything you would want. A particular advantage of the HSE dynamic though tends to be pricing, and this again is a prime example, because for what was of course when new up around a £60,000+ £4x4, this is now under £19,000. And for those who prefer to finance their vehicles, of course it does still come with the option of low deposit financing as well to further spread out that cost. But even if you were not to choose the option of financing, that is a phenomenal amount of luxury vehicle, certainly in an appropriately luxurious visual package as well for that kind of money. Quite literally the price of a bare bones Dacia, but instead you're getting a full-size luxury spec SUV, or of course 4x4 as we would call them here in the UK. Part of the reason why that price is so particularly good though is actually its history and mileage. In addition to having a full main agent and specialist service history to its name, in fact it's most recently been serviced in November, barely 500 miles ago. Even more impressive though is its mileage. This car has covered 57,000 miles. Now, for those who are perhaps a little newer when it comes to searching for a Range Rover on the market, that number might not mean too much. The reality is though, that's 34,000 less miles than the average for one of these on the market, which is an astronomical difference, especially when it's backed up with that kind of service history as well. Its superb history doesn't end there though, because it's only a 2 private keeper car from brand new in 2014. As that history shows, of course they have absolutely loved the car, and being a Range Rover, it is very well equipped. Plenty of goodies, that's for sure. Front and rear heated seats, that tilt and slide panoramic roof, solar attenuating glass, of course reverse parking camera with front and rear sensors as well, power opening and closing tailgate with touchscreen display, Bluetooth and auxiliary inputs, front and rear USB inputs as well, built-in navigation and cruise control, xenon headlights with of course LED day runners and LED lights on the rear as well, dual zone climate control, adaptive dynamics as the name implies. Of course it comes with that high and low ratio 2-speed transfer box, and in practice that means it actually is an off-roader, unlike many posers these days. And of course it has, as you would expect from a luxury family car, ISOFIX attachments if you do plan to fit child seats as well. To jump back to the second part of this vehicle's name, which we mentioned earlier on though, the 3-litre SDV6. What does that mean in practice? Well, for one thing, it means it's the most in-demand engine we find in the Range Rover Sport, so that's certainly a good start. The second thing is though, it's a very, very well spec'd engine. On the one hand, you have 300 horsepower, very good acceleration and performance when you need it, but more importantly, low-end pulling power. If you were to, for example, use this as a towing vehicle, as you can see it is fully prepped in order to tow as a holiday car or whatever the case may be. It has 440 foot-pounds of torque, that's around 600 newtons, so not exactly lacking in terms of pulling power. But what is perhaps the most impressive thing on the engine side of things when it comes to these cars is actually their fuel economy. Not the kind of sentence you would expect to be said about a Range Rover, but there you go. Up to 38 miles per gallon on average, as high as 42 on the motorway. That is shockingly good for a 4x4, let alone a luxury one. And even in terms of yearly road tax, because of being a 2014 example, and of course because of how efficient and economical that engine is, not to mention the fact that some older Range Rovers even are as high as £800 a year to tax, this in comparison is about half that at £395. In other words, if you were to tell your neighbours that you just spent under £19,000 on a car with four-wheel drive, under £400 a year road tax, around 40 miles per gallon of economy, well, they probably wouldn't guess it were a Range Rover. And yet, here we are. A fantastic looking car, gorgeous interior spec, tons of gadgets and goodies, and again, for less than than a third of the price of what these were when new, but really with all of the advantages. In fact, you could say even more advantages now than when they were new. So of course, if you are on the lookout for one of these and you would like to get in touch about this gorgeous Luxor Gold example, you could of course reach out via the email address shown here on screen, or give us a call on 01749 871155, or alternately on our mobile number of 07482 267 439.